You are listening to Ministry Minded, a podcast of Step Up to Life, where we discuss the gospel, theology, and how to navigate the highs and lows of Christian ministry. Living out the Christian faith is a complex thing to navigate, so we're here to help you think through it as you progress on your journey. Hey, welcome back to Ministry Minded. I'm Nick.
And I'm Linc.
And today we have a really awesome friend, mutual friend. Actually, I just got to hang out with him the other day and have an awesome lunch and a really excellent conversation. So, Lincoln, who is this guy?
Yes, well, this man goes by many names. He's multi-talented, and therefore you need many names. But this is Edward King III, Edward King 3.0, or EK3.
Otherwise known as Tank.
Otherwise known as Tank. And so
yes, sir.
You were just sharing with us for a minute. Your dad actually gave you that nickname Tank when you were a young kid.
Yeah. So I kind of grew into it. So he was prophetic with the name. But he gave me the story about how he got the name.
Yeah.
He had a track coach that took him on a track meet that he was going to, and he had his family with him. And at the time, my grandpa and grandma wasn't together at the time, so he was in a single parent home at the time. And he said he always valued family. So he said that was his first time, like being in a car with a mom and a dad and the kids. And he said that his track coach called his son Tank. And he said that name stuck out to him then when he was a young kid, kind of being a part of that. And he said, hey, I was going to name my son Tank if I ever had one. So that's crazy how that went from there to him nicknaming me Tank when I was a kid, and didn't know I was going to grow up to be 6'4". We ain't going to talk about the pounds, but but I kind of grew into the name. So,
I've always wondered, so it's nice to know the story.
Yeah, I get that question a lot, but it's cool that, hey, the way he kind of brought that together and it's kind of stuck. So I don't hear Edward from anybody but my grandma, but everybody else, I hear Tank. So
and maybe you're in trouble when you hear Edward. I don't know.
Maybe.
That full name comes out.
Absolutely.
So just a little relational history. We mentioned Tank's dad, Ed King, who was here for a podcast not long ago at all. Has that been published yet with Ed's?
Yeah. That's been out several episodes ago.
So there you go. You can tune in and watch that one. And I've known Ed for 35 years, maybe.
Wow, that's crazy.
Something like that. How old are you?
I'm 41.
Okay, so you were a little kid when I first met your dad.
Yeah.
Through Bert Holland and Dayspring and all of that. We don't need to go into all that.
Yeah.
But and then we've connected a few times, and the main thing, we can back up, but let me jump to, the main thing is we've connected through Step Up to Life because Tank is an avid user of Step Up to Life in the ministry and the ministries that he's been involved in over the years. And so we want to hear about that. But let's back up a little bit before that. So your dad's a pastor, so you're raised in the church.
Yes.
Tell us about your faith journey. When did you come to that saving knowledge of Christ?
It took a while. It's like being around it, like with your dad being a pastor. It's like you go to every church service. You go to every youth service. Like Bible study was not optional; it was mandatory.
Absolutely.
Even with all the sports and stuff we played as middle schoolers and high schoolers, like I don't care what your practice is or when your games are. You're gonna be in Bible study on Wednesday. You're gonna have game. You're gonna be at church on Sunday.
I was a senior at Burke. And I didn't go out for basketball, though I played the years before that.
Yeah.
And I was going to be on an intramural team. We're going to have a killer intramural team.
Okay.
All these is great. So Wednesday nights, I'm 18.
Yeah.
My folks says, nope, Wednesday nights church, as long as you're under this roof.
Yeah.
Come on, man. It's
Absolutely.
like, we know what that's like.
So basically him instilling that, my son going to have the same thing. It's like church is mandatory. So just going to church, he used to partner with Zeros with Pastor Todd back in the day. I remember going out there at the Trinity for Bible study every night. We would mix our groups together.
So that was the name of your youth group, the Zeros?
No, the name of Todd's youth group was Zeros.
Oh, yeah.
Ours was, I forgot the name of ours. It's been so long.
Okay.
But we would partner together and do that. So just being around church, your dad being a pastor. But it's like my faith becoming my own, it took a while. And it's like, of course, I feel like I might have accepted Jesus when I was like 8. I got baptized when I was 8, but didn't have a full revelation of what that meant and what that looked like. And it's like, I feel like I got to a point, I might have been like 19 or 20, to where like I felt like I had heard every sermon. Yes. And I felt like I grew callous to the word. And I remember God speaking to me. It was in the church service, like a regular service. And I remember God like kind of pressed on my heart, you need to decide what side of the street you're going to be on. It's like, it's time to pick a side. Like you can't just be in the middle like this. I was in this lukewarm stage where I knew what was right, but wasn't ready to fully commit to it. And it's like in that service, so like I remember I got emotional, started crying, and God kind of touched my heart then. It's like, okay, it's time to go all in with this following Jesus thing. So I said yes then.
So many similarities. I was 22. You were 19.
Yeah, 19, 20, somewhere around there.
I wonder if that's common with pastors' kids.
Yeah, because it's like, you've been to every service. You've heard every, and it's like over time it can start like, okay, I've heard this before. And it's like, start feeling like you know it all, but it's like it's not real in your heart yet. And it's like having that head knowledge, okay, I had that.
Right.
But it's like it being real to me wasn't there yet. You know what I mean? So it's like it wasn't until the end that some stuff started changing. So
okay. So back up a little bit more. So you went to Northwest High School.
Yes, went to Northwest.
Okay, and you played some ball there?
Yeah, I played football and basketball. One year my junior year I did 3 sports. I did football, basketball, and I threw the shot put.
Of course
I was not that good at the shot put.
Really?
But my football coach was like, hey, it's a good way to get some lifting in the off season. So was a 3-sport athlete that junior year. And I was okay at shot put, was better at football.
What position?
I played offensive tackle and defensive tackle.
Ooh,
yeah, so
right
there in the right there in the trenches. Yeah, so I had an opportunity to go play football at Hastings. So they brought me out for a visit.
All right.
At the time, just didn't know nothing about financial aid, or I thought I was going to play at UNO and just didn't materialize. Okay. So it's like sometime you wonder about what would have happened.
Yeah.
But it's like, God, I know you had a plan for me. It's like if I would have went, I would have never met my wife, all the stuff that's went well since then. So like sometimes grateful for stuff that might not work out at the time. So so basketball was fun too. So
So you got you got on Northwest, and then what did the next few years look like for you?
So the next few years, I was working at OPS. I was doing custodial work for OPS for some years, making decent money, had benefits and all that, but just no passion in my life. Just where I had worked at OPS for 8 years, just consistently working and paying bills and doing my thing. And I'll never forget, there was a night I was working at I always get connected back to my old school. I was working at Nathan Hill Middle School because I went to Nathan Hill also. So there was a night, like I worked a night shift, like 2:30 to 11. And there was a night I was there and I was sweeping the floor. And I felt like, I said, there has to be more to your life than this. And it's like, no disrespect to people that do that. It's like, but for me, I felt like God was calling me like, hey, there has to be more to your life than this. It's like, okay, God, what is that? It's like, I don't know what that looks like. And at the time, looking back on it, I had zero faith, like zero. It's like to step out, like very cautious, like to step out in faith and try something and kind of follow God's leading. Like I was not in the place to do that. So transition from there to like I lost a job at OPS. It's like, I feel like God took that job from me because at that time, if I would have stayed, I would have just stayed and stayed and stayed. It's like I was there 8 years already, and it's like God kind of had to shake me up a little bit to where it's like, hey, you need to start depending on me and not depending on yourself. And it's like, so then it started coming around. It's like, okay, what am I going to do? And something in my heart, like, man, I love kids. Something about kids. I always wanted to do something working with kids. And when I was working at OPS, Pastor Ty would come in, mess with me, and say, Tank, you need to be down here. You need to be down here at the Hope Center. And like in the summertime, my schedule shifted to day hours where I would work 7 to 3:30. Okay. So there was a couple of summers I would work 7 to 3:30 at OPS, and I would go to the Hope Center and work from 4 to 7. So it's like, that was the first initial, like, man, this is pretty cool working. But I was so selfish at the time. It's like the Hope Center wasn't paying enough at the time. And Ty was trying his best to get me over there. And it's like, well, Ty, y'all don't pay enough for me to leave my stable job to step out on faith in this job working with kids. But it's like, that was the first time I got the bug of, hey, man, those were long days, but it was a lot of fun getting to work with the kids at the Hope Center then. But at the time, was too selfish. And I don't feel like I was spiritually mature enough to help lead other people at that time. So, but Pastor Ty seen the way back then. It was pressing on it then. So when I left OPS, it's like, okay, we had Step Up Omaha. That was the first year of that Step Up program that summer. So before that, I started off volunteering. I would come down 2 or 3 days a week at the Hope Center. I was sweeping. I was doing everything, just volunteering. It's like, I feel like for the first time in my life, I figured like, God, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Like, I loved it. It's like working with these kids, basically in the inner city, like they had a lot of stuff going on. It's like God was just starting to give me his heart for it. It's like, so I started off volunteering, and then Step Up Omaha came up. I applied for that, and I got in for that first summer. And it's like, it was only for the summer. So it's like, okay, after the summer is over with, do I got to look for another job? It's like, God, I finally figured out what I'm supposed to do. Like, I don't want to leave. So it's like, I remember talking to Miss Deb Johnson, who was the director at the time. It's like, hey, what can we do for me to stay on? And it's like, and even with my dad being there, it's like there was no guarantee because Dad was there to, hey, you get this connection, you get to stay. Yeah. And it's like...
And your dad had been there for...
He had been there for a while.
Quite a while.
At that point. And it's like, when I got that bug of working there, it's like... And getting to see kids' lives transform and getting to see God was just doing surgery on my heart during that time. And it's like, okay, how do I get to stick around here to be a help? And it's like, from that point on, after that summer, they started me as a trial basis in the Employment Academy. And then I went from the Employment Academy, I worked with the little kids, the kindergarten through sixth graders, and I worked with middle school and high school. So it's like every part of the Hope Center I got to work in. That's where I kind of cut my teeth. It's like getting in there. It's like dealing with kids that are a little bit rougher. It's like my first summer, that first step up group, it's like it was a rough group. And it's like, I mean, we did training at North High School, and there was a girl I was training with, and she said, well, we hope we don't get these two boys. I was saying, we hope we don't get them. We was betting, like, hoping that they got the two boys. And she was saying, we hope y'all get them. Like, these two boys were so disrespectful, so unruly. And we end up getting them.
Of course
we get them. So I'll never forget, I was green, I'm nervous. My first small group, I'm in this circle with these kids, and I'm like, hey, what are y'all here for? Like, we had a little question sheet. Hey, what are you here for this summer? And one of the boys in my group, one of those two boys, he said, I'm here to do the devil's work. And when I tell you he did not blink, like it wasn't a joke. He was 100% serious. It was like I felt a chill in the room. And this boy's in junior high at the time. And I remember shortly after that, we had them do these vision boards. Like, hey, where do you see yourself in 5 years? And both of these fellas drew a picture of their funeral, like pictures of them in the casket, family there. And it's like, wow, this is my introduction to ministry.
Hello.
And it's like, so the one boy that when I met him, he had a scar from here to here because he was shot already. And I didn't know until after the fact that these two fellas, they were in junior high, were very active gang members at the time. So it's like the boy, later on in that summer, like the boy was 100 pounds soaking wet like a little guy. Like, why does dude think he's so tough? Well, he was bringing a gun in there the whole summer. Like they found out, somebody tipped off Ms. Deb that he was bringing a gun in there, and they kind of got him, and he didn't get to finish the program. And it was a couple months after that, they said he was playing Russian roulette with a group of friends and died at 14 years old. And it's like, so that boy that told me he was here to do the devil's work, it wasn't a couple months after that prophecy that he had drawn that picture of him being in his casket, he passed away. And it's like, okay, God, what did I get myself into? It's like, God, I got to go deeper with you to be able to minister to this group of kids. And it's like, and that's where it started at.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's where the passion for lost kids, it's like, you start off that volunteering, and then I start seeing the need and start seeing the pain and the hurt. It's like, God, this, I feel like he started breaking my heart for what broke is. It's like, this is not cool. It's like, we have to do something to be a help to this. And it's like, when I started there, it's like, God gave me so many opportunities over those years to be light to kids that was in darkness. So, yeah.
And I know that because you've shared with me, and I've been with you down there a couple times. So in your program, you'd said like we kind of kick off anew each fall, school year. And the first thing you said you would do is you'd go through teach Step Up to Life to these kids.
Yes, I loved it. Oh, it was so fun. And it's like Step Up to Life is probably my foundation, or probably one of my favorite things to teach, because they need that litmus test. We need to know where you are. Like it builds on everything else I teach during the year. It's like before we talk about the music you listen to, or you being appropriate with girls or boys and all of that other stuff. Well, we don't know who Jesus is. If we're not in right standing with him, then we're starting behind the 8 ball. So it's like, to me, Step Up to Life gave such a great foundation for me to point, hey, for you to identify, hey, where do you think you at as relates to being unconcerned about your relationship with God, and concern and conviction, and getting to explain. I would go a couple months just doing Step Up to Life. Like I would break it down.
You told me you make them go up and teach it. They go up and have the diagram.
It got to the point to where when I asked, hey, give me 3 truths about God's character. He's all wise, he's all holy, he's all merciful. Like they would run it off to me because it became that embedded to them. It's like, I want y'all to know clearly. I said, just like you can clearly tell me your first, middle, and last name, when I ask you your first, middle, last name, you don't have to think about it. You just know. I want you to know if I'm connected to Jesus or not. Wow. If that saving faith step, if I'm there, I want you to know. If I'm not, I want you to know that too. And it's like, okay, well, how do I move forward? Or if I'm on unconcerned, why am I unconcerned about it? If I'm just concerned, then why am I here? And it's like, it was just such a great tool for them to identify where they were. So I appreciate all the work y'all do putting that together, because it's like, God has just given me my way of teaching it to connect with kids that just wouldn't have heard it otherwise. And it's the majority of kids I dealt with, that was their first time hearing the gospel. You know what I mean? So it's like, it was such a great way to kind of build for them to get an identification of where they were.
Sure.
I can only imagine, I'm sitting here listening and I'm thinking, Paris Reedhead is smiling up in heaven. He taught it to Dad, who's smiling up in heaven. Who taught it to Ty, who's smiling up in heaven. To Ed, to you, to these kids. It's like 6th generation.
It's continued to go down. It's like, to be
amazing.
honest, like I'm sure my dad shared that when he was on. It's like, that's what brought my dad and mom to know Jesus.
Yes.
My mom was 16 when she had me, but Dad was 17, and they were kind of wandering through their life, and they seen that poster, Who Runs Your Life? It was like, that was the start for them to identify, hey, where they were spiritually. And it's like, for that to go from them down to me, it's like the gospel's been spread through all those generations through that teaching.
Isn't
Hey, Tank, someone might be listening to this right now thinking, what are these 5 steps? What is this thing he's telling these kids? Can you just tell them real quick, give them an overview? They have no idea what Step Up to Life is. They're hearing this for the first time. Tell them what are the 5 steps and how you help these kids understand where they're at spiritually through that.
So the first step, and I'm doing this off memory, is unconcerned. Basically, as it relates to you and your relationship with God, you don't care. And it's like, sadly, a lot of the kids I dealt with, I don't care about my spiritual condition. I want to do what I want to do. So we flushed that all the way out. What's some characteristics of somebody that's unconcerned, that don't care about where they are spiritually? And then I would have them name them, and they would speak them out. Okay, so unconcerned, and this is something that I added. Just being honest, it's like, hey, there's a end to every step of these. So if you end, like if you lose your life in the midst of being unconcerned, unfortunately, hell is where you go. And the reason why I would share that, because, man, there were some kids I dealt with, we was their last step, like I shared earlier, they last step between here and eternity. So I wanted you to know, hey, this is what the end is if you die on this step. Like, not trying to scare you, but I want you to know the truth of where we are with that. So unconcerned. Concerned, hey, you care about your spiritual condition a little bit, but not enough to do nothing about it. So it's like, we wanted to identify that. A lot of kids fit in that spot to where, hey, I think about it. I care about what's going on with me spiritually, but enough for me to actually surrender my life to Jesus, enough for me to change, I ain't there yet. And I always say, hey, concerned is better than being unconcerned. But if you pass away on being concerned, a lot of people that were well-intentioned, that's not going to make it in because they chose to stay on that step of being unconcerned. And then the next one is conviction. And I would go through like, hey, when you do stuff wrong, how does it make you feel? Does it bother you when you do things wrong? And then a little, a lot, you know what I mean? So they would go through like, well, it don't bother me too much. I said, then we talked about, when we talk about conviction, godly sorrow and worldly sorrow. Are you just sorry because you got caught? Or are you sorry because, hey, I sinned against a holy God with what I did? So like, we went through conviction and we went through the 10 Commandments and that, and to where there would be weeks, I would take a couple weeks just on honor your mother and father. Hey, what does that look like? Put no other God before me. We would talk about all of these things, so where it's like there was so much meat in there to where I would just take it and I would take my time. It's like, I want to give you the best foundation I can possibly give you before we get up that ladder. So we talked about sex a lot because a lot of our kids are struggling with that. So you should not commit adultery. So I would use that adultery one, and then we would go into everything sexually immoral and what God thinks about it and where are we at with those things. So it's like, it's so much in there that we would just build on. So that conviction, like have them identify, like feeling bad about your sin, sadly, that's good. It's at least you're not callous to it like the unconcerned person is. But if you die there, we still not where we need to be.
I like that.
You got to have your conviction move you to making a decision. So we went from conviction to repentance, and then we talked about, hey, what does repentance mean? To turn. Like, hey, I'm going this way, I'm doing stuff my way. Hey, I'm not doing it the way I want to do it no more. God, I'm trusting you, and I'm turning, and I'm coming your way. And I would always use an analogy when we get to repentance. It's the step before you get to that saving faith. And I would explain what saving faith is. Saving faith is like putting your faith in Jesus to lead your life. I would always use the analogy of a cheer. I would bring a cheer up. I would have one of the kids come up. I said, for all this time you've been driving this car. You run your life. You do what you want to do. You make all decisions you want to make.
Yeah.
I said, it's a change of guard. It's basically you going from the driver to the passenger to where, okay, God, I still want to do the wrong thing. I still want to do what I want to do. But you're in a new jurisdiction now. You don't get to run it. It's like, I still want to go left, but God, I'm trusting. I put you in this seat, and I will play God, and I will sit in the seat.
Right.
Now, I said, are you still tempted to cut somebody out when they make you upset? Absolutely. What the difference between before and after that saving faith step, well, you're under new jurisdiction now. So I want to do this, but God, I'm following your lead. I'm going this way. Hey, I want to steal. The opportunity for me to steal is there, but God, I'm not doing what I want to do. I'm following what you want me to do.
That's good.
And talked about what saving faith is and basically getting out of the seat and allowing God to be in that seat and allowing Jesus to lead your life. And we would just go through details of that. And,
so good.
And the coolest part for me, at the end of that, after I presented the case, I'm like a lawyer presenting my case, and it would be months. Like it would normally take a couple months to go through all of this. And then at the end, I said, I don't want to coerce you into a decision. That's why it would take so long going through it and explaining it.
Good.
So at the end of this, you making an informed decision to either say yes or no.
Right. Yes.
And if you say no, we're going to keep praying with you. We're going to keep working through it because it's for the whole school year.
Yeah,
so it's like, that's just the start.
Yeah.
And if you say yes, we're not leaving you here. We get to walk through, hey, okay, now we can get into, hey, how the believers supposed to live? How are they supposed to carry themselves? What thing are they supposed to get into and not get into? So after we got through, my favorite part was when kids would say, hey, yes to Jesus at the end of that. And we would give them a Bible. And I got pictures in my phone from way back 2014, 2015 of kids with their Bible that said yes to Jesus. And we got to walk them through that. And it's like, God, it's amazing to be able to, like, it always jacked me up. Always got me excited to be able to share the gospel in a detailed way like this. And I took that from when I left the Hope Center to now at Youth for Christ, being the campus life director at Northwest High School in OPS school. Every Wednesday, I get to teach. Like I got pictures on. I got a smart board where I write out to step up to all the steps. And some of my kids are a little bit better at artwork than me, so I would put a little man on the steps. So the kids they'd draw the man for me. Who runs your life? And it's like I would go through it in the high school. So,
wow,
yeah, it's just amazing to
That's
be
one of the best
that.
answers I've ever heard. Can you tell us about the 5 steps?
Yeah.
Got it dialed in.
It's so a part of who I am. It's like basically this ministry has been such a blessing to me and such a blessing to lost kids. It's like because it helps them see exactly where they are. And it's like he's all wise, he's all holy, he's all merciful. Like they can give me the details of what that description is. What does God want to do? He wants to forgive you for your sins. We will go through that. Man, that's great news. He wants to forgive me of my sins. He wants to give me meaning for my life now. We will go into detail about these superstars, these people that we follow, and they're committing suicide. And they don't, and they're on drugs because they don't have, okay, they're rich. That's what we aspire to be like as in our culture, but they don't have no meaning for their life because they're not following Jesus. So we broke that down to them. And he wants to take you to heaven when you die. How great, man, we all gonna die. There's no getting around that. Hey, just as real as heaven is, hell is just as real. So when that he wants to take you to heaven when you die, we went through that in detail about heaven and hell and how God wants to take you to heaven. I said, this is all good stuff. So it's like when we would talk through that, it's like the kids were just, man, they can roll all 6 of those off. To where it's like, I got some seniors now. Great. It's like if I ask him, hey, what are the 3 things God want to do? Who is God? Give me some of God's character. He's all wise. He's all holy. He's all merciful. What does he's all holy mean? Well, he's a holy God. He can't approve of sin. What does he all wise mean? That means he knows what's best for my life. It's like they can run it off. And it's like from doing that every year, it's like it's just such a good foundation, man, to keep pushing us. Okay, where are we going from here?
Yeah.
Man, I love it so much. I'm just like,
is this amazing? You have articulated. I mean, you're out of memory. You are giving page 2. I'm sitting there. I'm reading page 2 as I'm listening to you.
Me too.
He's like masterclass, right?
Masterclass, absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
But do you see a difference in that as opposed to sometimes people come in and it's all about, we'll reform through morality. And you're not ignoring morality.
Right.
In fact, you're pressing into it even further than most people do with the holiness of God, showing you where morality even comes from, why it's important, why it's immutable. It is what it is. We can't reduce it or soften it. It's
right.
But that's not the power for change.
Yes.
Right?
Absolutely.
Which is the difference. So this whole idea of bringing to the person to the point where they understand they are bankrupt.
Yes.
Rather than having them aspire to more moral perfection in their own power,
That's so
which is
true.
a totally different
Totally
idea.
different. Yeah.
Are you seeing that the Holy Spirit flip that switch in these kids where they realize, oh, wait a minute here, like not only is God in charge, but I want to do what God wants now because not because they're trying to please him per se out of effort, but because they know him. They've submitted, they've surrendered.
And I try to make that clear. It's like basically we don't serve God out of obligation. We serve him because he's good. We serve him because he loves us. We serve him because he has a detailed, he gives you meaning for your life now. Like he got plans for you. And there's kids in those rooms that people not speaking positive to them. People not speaking life into them. I said, you know that God, the God of the universe that created everything, has a detailed plan for your life.
Yes.
Man, if you understand that early, do you know how many bad decisions you can save yourself by understanding how much God loves you, how detailed he is about you? So it's like that trying to be good enough. None of us are good enough. Right. And it's like, I would use that, and that's in the book. I would use that 10 Commandments. Yeah. It's like, if you've broken one of these, then we all fall short. And it's like, hey, has anybody ever lied before? I put my hands up.
Yep.
Right.
Like basically, and I always make it clear to them, just because I'm teaching y'all, all of this stuff is stuff that I have to do. Right. Because like I've experienced this, like I've lied, I've done stuff wrong. There's times I didn't honor my parents. Yeah. So like I'm not standing on my high horse telling you what you should be doing. Right. I'm saying this is what us as humanity, what we all need. Yeah. And it's like for them to identify, hey, I can't get to heaven on my own. I can't be good enough. There's not a such thing as being good enough. Yeah. That's why Jesus paid the price for us and why we need to put our faith in him. So it's like that morality piece is like, I want them to get a clear understanding. Hey, identify where we are. Hey, there's a gap. And I mean, with that whole God, he's all holy. He can't approve of sin. I'll go into detail about we like to minimize our sin. Oh, it ain't that big a deal. I just cussed a couple of times. I just stole a little bit. It ain't that big of a deal. Yeah. No, man, God is a holy God. He can't approve of sin. And I feel like we've got this fluffy God that's not basically as loving as he is. He's righteous. And he's about being a righteous judge. And we get to the point where we think we can live any kind of way. And all because God loves us and everything's going to be good. Like, man, he's a holy God. I'm not playing with him. It's like that holy fear, that holy reverence for God, that I'm not just going to live and roll around in my sin and think there's not going to be any consequence for it. So I want the kids to understand, you might not have been told this before, man, God loves you. He has a plan for you. But you just can't live in sin and think you're going to be in right standings with him. So like I want to give a clear picture of his character and who he is. And it's like, man, when you start having this reverence and this respect for who God is, it's like, man, I got to think a little bit before I start making decisions. And it's like, a lot of times the youth I've dealt with, man, they haven't thought about cause and effect. Like that was one story I told you. There's multiple stories of kids that's dead. There's multiple stories of kids that we minister to that are in jail right now. And it's like, man, I was trying to give you something that could change your entire life if you listen to it. So, yeah.
So, Tank, the one of the things that as we kind of survey the evangelical world and look at the gospel that's being preached and presented, we're finding that often it stops here. It only goes to the head. Yeah. The gospel facts are given, which they need to be given. And then what do? You call for the question. Are you going to? Yeah. And we often say you got to drop down 12 inches. I love so the head needs to be informed, but then you drop down and you put the 5 steps over the heart, and you then figure out as you talk to them what step they're on in their heart. What's their heart attitude towards what they say they believe? Yeah. But the statistics are so bad today in terms of lasting conversions. Yeah. It's because all we're doing is informing the head.
Yeah. That's so important. And it's like, that's why it takes time. That's why it takes detail. Yes. That's why it takes consistency. And one of our taglines for Youth for Christ, they said we want to develop lifelong followers of Jesus.
That's good.
Like,
lifelong.
That's the goal. It's like basically, I don't want you to make an emotional decision one time.
Yes.
I want to visit you 5 years from now, 10 years from now. Hey, be at y'all weddings and see your family. Hey, you as a leader, you're following Jesus. Right. And it's like, it's not, I don't want you to make an emotional decision.
Yeah. Well, here's the 5-year, give them the 5-year statistic. 5 years later.
Yeah. I mean, D.A. Carson's done some research on this and, the percentages of those who are actually following Christ, about 5 years after they make a quote unquote decision at world class evangelistic meetings, anywhere from 2 to 4%.
Yeah, that's too
That's it.
crazy.
2 to 4% of those
low.
who respond to some sort of altar call. Not that we're against altar calls per se.
Yeah.
We even do those.
Right.
But the question is, how are you doing them? Right? It's 2 to 4%.
Yeah,
2 to 4% people are persisting in their faith 5 years after they respond to most altar calls at world-class evangelistic meetings. We've got to slow down what we're doing. I kind of always think about it like if trusting in Christ is more important than even getting married, which I think, I hope most of our listeners, and we would agree that that's true.
Yeah.
You don't meet a girl. Oh, well, okay, I should say most people.
Right.
There are some.
Right.
Las Vegas is popular for a reason.
Absolutely.
But most lasting marriages aren't done on the spur of the moment.
Right.
There is some serious thought that goes into, am I going to marry this woman? Right? Because it is a commitment that is not to be entered into lightly, because you're saying, or at least hopefully you're saying, hey, I'm committed to you. This is probably the most or second most important decision I'll ever make.
Yeah.
But then we cheapen the decision about Christ.
Yes. Oh, that's good.
As if it's less important than getting married. It's the most important thing you'll ever do.
Yeah.
But it's almost like we're selling just hell insurance. Well, here, it doesn't matter what the condition of your heart is right now,
that's
Tony.
Good. Right.
Just sign on this line, and when you die, you can cash it in.
It is so much more than that. And when I tell you into my notes and stuff that I tell kids, one of the things I always tell them is like, okay, who you gonna marry? What your career gonna be? What city you gonna live in? All of these things, these are all important decisions. They pale in comparison to the decision of, hey, are me and God in right standings? Us following Jesus, that's the first and most important decision. Once we get that figured out, hey, God cares about you having meaning for your life. He's going to help you pick the wife. He's going to help you say yes to the career or no to the wrong one. It's like everything starts and stops with him. Yeah. And once we get that first, it's like then we can start making better decisions, falling out with everything else. Yeah. And it's like you said, that hell insurance, I always tell them, it's like one of the benefits of following Jesus is I don't have to deal with hell. God, thank you for that. But there is so much more to following Jesus. It's not just to get out of hell free card. No, it's like, man, God, what am I supposed to be doing? God, he's commissioned us. There's stuff he's commissioned us to do. So it's like, there's a benefit and I ain't got to deal with hell. But man, if I'm accepting Jesus just in his hell, then I'm cheapening all that God has for me.
That's right.
And I try to help the kids understand that. It's like, it's a benefit not to go to hell. There's so much more to it than that.
One thing I love about your ministry now and back at the Hope Center is that you have the same, basically, I'm sure there's kids different from week to week, but you have basically the same group of kids that you can work with. And you can take your time and share the gospel fully and give them time to, quote, count the cost.
Count the cost, absolutely.
You got to count the cost. And it's not this drive-through kind of thing. Here's a quick story. You can use this. My dad used to tell us. He said, this guy told another guy, he goes, hey, the Lexus dealership down there, they're giving away free cars. What? Free cars? Yeah. All you got to do is be able to write your name 3 times. Well, I can write my name. Are you kidding me? You just show him, write your name 3 times. He goes down there. Hey, I heard you're giving away cars if I just write my name 3 times. The guy says, yeah, absolutely. Sure. Come on in. Sit down in my office here. Which car? You want that car? Okay, cool. Cool. Okay, first of all, the title from your old car, that's where you're going to write your name the first time. You're giving that to me as a trade-in. Oh, and by the way, here's the second time you're going to sign your name. It's on your check for $10,000. Oh.
Right.
And here's the payments of $500 a month for the next 6 years. Sign your name there. All you have to do is sign your name 3 times.
Right, and there's a lot of stuff tied to you signing that.
They don't understand what they're doing. And when they do, it's like, well, wait a minute. Wait a minute. It's like the rich young ruler that was like, wait a minute. And then he walked away. So I so appreciate you unpacking the gospel in a full, transparent way with these kids so they can really understand if they say yes, what they're saying yes to. That's huge.
I think sometimes the way people present the gospel is trust Jesus for eternity, but you don't have to trust him with your life. Look, if you don't trust him with your life, you don't trust him for eternity.
Absolutely.
Come on, let's move here. You don't trust Jesus to take care of you for the next 50 years.
Right.
Guess what? You don't trust him to take care of you for eternity.
So true.
Come on.
That's so true.
And I think that's what we're scared of, right? Because, we're going to lose somebody. Look, they never came. You're going to lose them? No, they never came, man.
So
like they're not really in,
That's good.
And we're fooling ourselves because we're looking for numbers rather than reality. And that's that just is so refreshing what you're doing. So what's got you excited right now? You're working with YFC.
Yes.
You tell us a little bit more about that and kind of what's going on with the kids. What are some things that are exciting? What are some challenges?
Yeah. Basically, I'm the campus life director for Omaha Northwest, so that's cool to kind of be in the school I graduated from, to be back there. Like, just a quick picture of high school Tank. Very shy, like scary shy. Like, keep me as far in the back as possible. I don't want to be seen. I don't want to talk. Just like, I would fake sleep in my class. Like, when we had a book report day, you had to be in front of the class and share your report. It's like, keep me. I'll take the F before I got to get up in front of these people and share. Like, I was that definitely shy, and it's like, that's just another picture how God can move you out of what you are to do what He wants you to do. So now to be back on campus, on a totally different mission. Like a kid that wouldn't talk to nobody. Like, I had my small little group of friends, but to now to be there to share the gospel, it's like it's amazing.
Wow.
So I get to coach football, so that's one of the things I get to do. So just building relationships through that is like with the goal of inviting those fellas in the Bible study later on in the year.
Right.
I used to, like, my first 2 years, we wouldn't do Bible study until after football season was over with. But I had to change that. I was like, there's too many months where we could be building some momentum before football season was over with. So I started missing practice every Wednesday. Like, hey, y'all, I'm volunteer coaching. It's like, so y'all can miss me on a Wednesday. Right. And like, our Bible study has grown a lot through doing it all year long. So now football season just ended. So now I'm looking forward to this influx of fellas that come into a group that's already been established for the whole year. So it's just fun to be on campus. That's another YFC. I got a lot of YFC tagline, but they so good. It says, we go where kids are. We go where youth are. Man, we're in their school. We're in their spaces. So it's amazing the conversations I get to have just by being at lunch.
So this is a public school.
Yeah, this is a public school.
So what? Where do you have to tiptoe around, walk on some thin ice?
That's true.
What are there restrictions? How does that work for you?
If there are, the Holy Spirit is covering me with those because I don't know how to, like, basically, I'm not being disrespectful. I'm not coming in just like you. I can't teach Bible study during the day. Yeah. But man, the conversations I get to have during the day, it's like I'm strategic on where I go. It's like I'm in the lunchroom, so I get to talk to kids in lunch.
They let you just be in the lunchroom? Just
be in the lunchroom. So I get to talk to kids and ask them about their day, ask them about their family.
Yeah.
I help check people in. Okay. So I'm up front where a lot of kids are getting kicked out. So when kids are getting suspended for the day, most of them, they got to wait 30 minutes or so for they rise. So I get, many great conversations I get to have, learn about their family. Hey, why'd you get kicked out? Hey, well, me and this girl got into a fight. So I get to kind of talk through those things with them. Hey, we got this Bible study class every Wednesday from 3:15 to 4:15. If you want to come check it out, we would love for you to come and see it. And it's like, some of the kids that came up there, I would have never thought they would come up there. Yeah. And it's like, just by being there and them being that positive face, being that positive influence, it's like just taking an interest in their life because I genuinely care. I feel like what kids can feel from me is I genuinely care. I genuinely care that your life is good. I care about your family. I want to know what's going on with you. And it's like, I feel like the kids are drawn to that. For sure. And it's like Youth for Christ just gives us a cool opportunity. And this school by school basis. Some schools are a little bit more standoffish, don't want you in. Sure. So it's like, I think through building relationship, and I think our principal has seen, hey, I got a genuine love for the kids to where, I don't know if she agrees with everything I'm talking, but it's like she's seen my heart for the kids to where she gives me access to be in the school. So I kind of get to do a dual role. Like, I'm a concierge for OPS through Northwest, to where I just get a little bit of money just to be there. You know what I mean? And help where they need help. Sure. So like that coaching football, that being a concierge, like I have my own badge. I can come and go out to school when I want to.
That's so good.
And that Bible study on Wednesday is just a cool time just to be able to, it's not lost on me to be able to be in the OPS school and be able to share the gospel on a weekly basis.
I should say.
Yeah. So
it's God's favor.
Yeah. And that's all God's full circle to be that shy kid. And to be in that classroom, it's a room 250. It's like, this is one of the classes that I would fake sleep in. So I didn't have to share.
Wake up, sleeper.
Yeah, I didn't have to.
Christ will shine
Absolutely. On you. So I didn't have to share my book report. And now, God, you're going to be standing in front of these kids sharing the gospel. You know what I mean? It's like, God, only you can do something cool like that. To be on the same field that I used to practice on. Yeah. And I'm coaching football. And it's like, but with a different mission, it's like, man, I'm inviting y'all fellas to Bible study. It's like, now the football season is over, I'm going to be pressing them more. Hey, if y'all don't have another sport, It's like, hey,
Yeah.
come check us out. Because, like, high schoolers are running all over the place. They got so much stuff. So it's hard to get them up there. But it's like, man, we had 25 kids here recently. And it's like, God, that's the most we've ever had before football season was over with.
Wow.
So it's like, I'm just excited to see what God is doing.
Yeah.
Just to be there with them. And it's like some of the stuff that they tell you, like, it's amazing. Some of the stuff that you get to see and some of the ways you get to minister. And you talked about some of the challenges. Man, it's a very violent school. It's like there's fights weekly. And so just trying to be there with some of that mess going on and trying to be a positive influence with that. And earlier this school year, we had a shooting on campus.
Right.
And it's like, you talking about, man, I graduated in 2001, and we had fights here and there, but would have never guessed it would be something like that going on at the school. And I ended up getting there a little bit later to lunch that day. And when I pulled up, it was like they wouldn't even let me up. I'm like, hey, what's going on? I see helicopters and police tape. I'm like, what is going on? So reluctantly, the police officer let me go up. I showed him my badge.
Okay.
I said, I'm just here to be a support. I said, I work here at the school. Is it okay if I go up? And I said, man, what's going on? He said, it's not national news, but it's local news, big news. And I'm like, okay. So I get up there. I park. As soon as I get out the car, one of the girls, she used to be like the water girl for the football team, and she's come to a couple Bible studies. And as soon as I got out my truck, and I came up, she said, Mr. King, we need Jesus in this school. We need Jesus in this school. And it's like, basically, you can see just the fear on the kids' face. And then all the parents are waiting because they're in their complete lockdown at this point. So the parents are like, man, where's our kids? It's like, is our kids safe?
Sure.
It's like, so you can see the terror on the parents' face. You can see the terror on the kids' face.
Wow.
And then some of my fellas that play football that were out there, some of the kids were already out. And they were saying, Coach, we smelled the gunpowder. Like I was going to my class and I smelled the gunpowder from the shot going off. And then one of the girls said that she was coming down the stairs and she seen the blood coming from the kid that was shot. And it's like, that is just nuts. And that's not okay.
No.
It's like the fact that our kids got to even walk through something like that and have to process through that. And it's like, man, how can we be a help to something like that?
Yeah.
Man, the hope of Jesus is the only thing that can encourage in the midst of that type of chaos.
Right.
And when the kids started coming out, that I was one of those positive faces for them to see. When they came out and their parents, you can see just a relief on some of the parents. And then I got some more backstory on two of the fellas that some of the stuff that they were in just wasn't wise. It's like some gang stuff that I found out that both of these fellas were in. So it's like just a bad situation all around. And I shared that to share the hope of Jesus that as crazy as that was, we had Bible study the week after. It's like, okay, the shooting happened on a Wednesday. On the day that we had Bible study, the shooting happened. Talked to some of my coaches that Thursday and Friday. They treated it like elementary school. They had coloring books, let the kids watch movies, like trying to bring that innocence back from what they experienced. And it's like, okay, so they had their little chill out days, that Thursday and Friday. And that Wednesday after that, at Bible study, there was a new girl. I think it was her second time coming. She was a freshman girl. And I just taught Bible study like I normally do. And at the end, she said, what do I need to do to be saved? She said, I would like to accept Jesus to lead my life. Can you tell me how to do that?
Wow.
And I tell you, it's like this at the end of Bible study. So I was like, so the other kids that had left, and me and a couple of my other leaders were still there. And we circled up right there, like her friend and a couple of leaders. We circled up and we walked her through accepting Jesus right there. So it's like, God, to go from the chaos of not even being able to have Bible study a week prior because of the shooting to this young lady accepting Jesus. And she's been at Bible study every week since then. So it's like, I get back to that, getting the trek with him, and she's a freshman. So I get to, man, by the time she gets through, hopefully by the time she's in her senior year, she's 100% walking in what God's called her to be. And it's like, man, you can't tell me that God's not in the middle of all of that. And the fact that Youth for Christ gives me opportunity and the privilege to be a part of that, it's like, man, I'm smiling every day to be able to be a part of that. Yeah.
Oh, man, I love it. I love it.
So good.
And there's probably someone who's just started doing something like Youth for Christ, and they're just totally overwhelmed.
Yeah.
Talk to that person real quick as we land the plane and just encourage them in the midst of all you've experienced, seen.
I'm telling you, it is overwhelming because it's like we have a lot to do being campus life directors, because basically you have to get a volunteer team, and that's been a struggle of mine, like getting people to come alongside the mission and be a part of what we're doing. So I'm always looking for volunteers, getting people to give to what we're doing. It's like that's part of a struggle. It's like we live off of donations, and it's like basically we take kids to camp. We got this thing coming up November 15th through the 17th, Red Weekend. It's an in-state camp to like a retreat to introduce kids to the gospel. Like they're mostly lost kids that get to go to this in-state retreat. Okay. And basically everything costs. So like getting people to give is a challenge. Yeah. And then we need people to pray. It's like we need as many people to pray as possible. It's like the darkness, sometimes we around it so much, sometimes we can grow callous to it. Man, there's a lot of darkness in these schools. There's a lot of kids that are coming from homes where Jesus is not a priority. And you can see it just in the way they behave and the disrespect for authority and all of these things. So it's like somebody coming in, I would say stay connected to God. It's like there's no way I can effectively do anything like having that intentional quiet time with the Lord, that intentional prayer time. And it's like I don't do nothing without inviting him into it. Like these Bible studies on Wednesday, I never know what kid is going to be there. Right. God, I want you to lead this conversation where you want it to go. So it's like I'm always praying lead up to that Wednesday. God, lead this conversation where you want it to go. God, have the kids in the room that's supposed to be in there. I'm praying for the kids that's there and the kid that might be there. Yeah. God, give me wisdom on how to lead them well. God, soften their heart for what we're going to talk about today. And it's like, so I would encourage anybody that's coming into YFC, I know we got a spot open that we're looking into, man, invite God into every process, every part of it. Because it's like, one of the things, it would get overwhelming thinking about, man, I ain't got a lot of connections, talking about raising money. It's like, God, how the heck do I do this? But it's like, God, it ain't about me. God, I'm soliciting you for this. It's like, I'm going to be there to do what you called me to do. Yeah. And the stuff that I don't have control over, God, you got to put on people's heart. Yeah. So I got to get in front of people. I got to ask. But it's like, God, it's not about me. You the one that gives that increase, that puts it on people's heart to give to what we're doing. So my encouragement to anybody that's coming into this ministry, probably one of the best teams I've been a part of. Like Jason Courier, our executive director, one of the best leaders I've ever been around. It's like, I'll follow him anywhere because his heart is for the gospel. It's like he aggressively sharing the gospel is what he stands on. And it's like, all the stuff that we do is how can we get in front of lost kids? What can we do to get lost kids to understand their need for Jesus? And it's like when your executive director, when that's his heart, man, it's easy to follow along with what we're doing. And we're in 49 schools, and we're trying to press to get into more OPS schools, more inner city schools. So that's the goal. And I would encourage them, hey, we got to be connected to God. We got to be taking that intentional time with Him. And this is where I landed on. God, this is not my ministry. This is your ministry that you allow me to steward. So God, give me wisdom on how to steward this well. Right. Give me wisdom on how to bring people to be a part of what we're doing. So
good.
Yeah.
No, you're awesome. Married, Brittany. You got kids. Yes. We didn't even talk about that as we land the plane.
He's a family man.
Yes, man, and that's God. He's all in all of that. It's like. Me and my wife, we've been together 14 years. Okay. Coming up on 11 years married at the end of November. Man, Pastor Ty pressed me years ago about mentoring. So I started off, when I got to the Hope Center, like there was this particular kid that they were ready to be done with. Like he was such a nuisance and just disrespectful. Like they were ready to kick him out of the program. He was like a 6th grader when I met him. And he took a liking to me. Like, why this bad kid that's giving the place the blues? He wants to be a part of what I got going on. So me and Brittany were newly married. And he said, hey, can I come hang out with you? Can you come take me to lunch? I'm like, this is me coming off of being selfish. Take you to lunch? Okay. So I took him to lunch. And after I took him to lunch, he's like, hey, is it okay if I come hang out at your house? I'm like, what are you talking about? I'm in a 1-bedroom apartment. Me and my wife are newly married. And he called his mom, and she said, okay, he can come over. So for a couple of weeks, he would come over, like every Friday night. He would stay till Sunday. Okay. Basically, Friday night, we'd take him to dinner. We'd hang out Saturday. And Sunday, he would go to church and have to go back home after a couple games of football on Sunday. So he was like, well, can my brother come? I'm like, you barely got to come. Now you're asking if your older brother can come. So older brother starts coming. And then there's this other boy that didn't find out till a year later he was my cousin. He started coming. And then there's another boy named Elijah started coming. So before I knew it, there's 4 teenage boys. And then find out till later, the first boy, dad was murdered. Second boy, dad was out of his life. Third boy, dad out of his life. Fourth boy, dad out of his life. So like, God, you gave me these 4 teenage boys, no dad. God, why did you have me be their mentor? Almost like in a way, was like a parent to him. And my wife, the way she would love on him, like I couldn't do the stuff I did without my wife. It's like the fact that she loved kids the way I did to where when they would get in trouble in school, their moms would call me. Like, I'm there, hey, get him in line because he's doing this in school. So I shared that to share that we went from that to now these boys are 20-some years old and we still got connections even after all these years. And it's like, God, it's amazing how you just, that's when God started giving me my heart for, hey, the ministry can't just be outside, it got to be inside. So unfortunately, me and my wife have struggled with infertility for our entire marriage. And we're still believing by faith that God can do a miracle in our family and bless us with a baby. But he just presses me. He said, why would you deny a kid love because they didn't biologically come from you? That was the word of the Lord for me.
Wow.
And I'm like, okay, God, well, I'll take one kid. That's what I told him. So I'll take one little black boy. That's what I told God. Like, I got to say. And the first boy that came was a little white baby. Of course. It's like, of course, God, you don't listen to me.
What was that thing about who runs your life?
Right, it's not me. So we had the little boy, and we were so green. We didn't understand how wrecked our foster care system is until we got into it. So we had him, and I told God, hey, I don't want no girls because that's more people I got to kill. If they messing with the girls, I can't take it. And God said, well, no, I'm going to give you 5 girls. So there was a time we had 8 kids in our home, 5 girls and 3 boys.
Oh, my word.
And it's like, just probably the closest I've had to get to God was to love a kid and lose them. Yeah. Like to have a kid that you want to be. Every kid that we took into our home, like some people like foster care just to have a revolving door, to have a safe place. Me and my wife, we only fostered with the intention to adopt.
Okay.
So every kid that came into our house, we wanted to adopt them. So, man, to love a kid and for them not to be able to stay, probably some of the most painful things I've experienced in my life. Yeah. And it's like, so we went from that to it's this sibling set of 4, a boy and 3 girls.
Okay.
And they came and they were with us in all the legal battles, all the back and forth for 4 years. Wow. And a couple of years ago, their last name is King. So to be officially adopted.
That's so awesome.
And we all gave them family middle names. So it's like for me and my wife what God was saying, it can't just be vocational. The stuff I put in you needs to be passed down to kids that's with you daily. So it's like they came on a Thursday, and they came on a Monday. By Thursday, they said, "Hey, can we call y'all mom and dad?"
Wow!
It's like if we knew, we don't know. It's like these kids you don't know. They were 3, 4, 5, and 6 when they came, and it's like. Now it's like one of the best joys of my life is being the dad. Yeah. And it's like, God, that you chose me to be their dad. Right. That they wouldn't have a dad otherwise. And it's like, God, that how he adopts us into sonship. It's like that heart that God has for us. That, God, you have allowed me and my wife to do that for these 4. And it's like, as much as they bless, as people say we bless them by being their parents, it's like, man, they're the blessing to us. It's like, basically, they allow me to walk out. Before I ever get out that door, to minister to all these other kids, man, the 4 in my house are the most important first. Yeah. And it's like, God, that you trust me to be their dad. Wow. It's the coolest thing.
It's kind of like going back to Ty's story. Yeah. You know, he felt like he needed to be a father to the fatherless. Yes. That was a big part of a value system that created the Hope Center. Yes. And so as you're sharing that, I just thought that same thing in Ty now passed down to you, that you're going to be a father to the fatherless.
And that's
it's so cool.
And it's like, God, only you can take something that was painful, and it's still painful.
Yeah, sure.
That basically I didn't just wallow in the pain of the infertility. It's like, well, God, I can still help somebody. There's stuff you put in me. Man, I'm a dad to my core. It's like, that's just who I am. So and it's like, God, you allowed me to parent these 4. Right. You know what I mean? And it's like, just like you said, Pastor Ty's heart for the fatherless, my dad's heart for the fatherless. It's like, that's how I feel like him and my dad connected because they had a heart. That's right. And I never, man, you talking about somebody, I was very selfish. I never would have thought that God would have shifted my heart to where the same line that Pastor Ty was on, the same line that my dad was on, for me to be in that same line of kids that wouldn't have family otherwise, that God, you trusted me to be that. So it's like, so when I go outside that door, like I'm going out with that heart of, man, I want you to be a part of this family. This Jesus family is the best family you can ever be a part of. And it'll change your life if you completely commit to it. So, yeah.
So awesome. Such a rich conversation. I feel like we could do another hour like this.
Yeah, absolutely.
But we've run out of time. If you want to support Tank, I'm going to put a link in the notes how you can support him at YFC. If you need information about Step Up to Life, if you are a youth worker and you want to know, how do I get Step Up to Life? We're getting a lot of requests lately from youth pastors, youth ministers, youth workers in parachurch. because what they're finding is that kids identify culturally as Christian often, but they don't actually know Christ, and they're trying to figure out, how do we have the conversation? That's what we do here. So StepUpToLife.com, you can order resources. You can actually get our app for free. So just look at the App Store, Step Up to Life. You should find that, download it. You can look through it. But that's what we love helping people do. So thanks again for tuning in.
Thank you guys so much for allowing me to be a part of it.
Man.
Really
this
appreciate it.
Great,
Really
man. It's a great conversation. And we'll have to have you back sometime.
Absolutely.
Maybe your wife will join us next time.
I think she would love to. She's a real estate agent now. She just got her real estate license and trying to connect with people.
Good
and it's
for
like,
her.
so I know she would love to be on to kind of share our story connected and how God has changed her life. So
she'll give us the real story.
she gives the real story. Absolutely.
Hey guys, thanks again for tuning in. We'll see you next time.
Thank you.
Right, thank
Bye-bye.
you. All right.
That's all for this episode of Ministry Minded. Thanks for listening. We hope you were encouraged and inspired to keep serving Jesus biblically as you follow him on your journey. If you appreciate this podcast, please subscribe, share it with your circle, and leave us a positive review. If you'd like to help us keep creating new episodes, you can do so with a tax-exempt donation online at stepuptolife.com/give.